So yes, sir.
Check it out. We're back.
So is this being broadcasted to YouTube right now? People can see me? What's up, everyone? All right. I'm talking to our producer over here, Pat, who you all can't see. Um, which Dr. Maxfield is the one that scheduled this live, and he's not here. I literally I was at the personal trainer. I jumped in the shower, jumped out of the shower, did my hair. I don't know what is going on with my hair. It just like will not cooperate right now. And I was expecting Dr. Maxfield to be here because he's the one that organized this live, and he's not here. And we're using a different program to stream, so I can't see all of you right now, but I'm going to be able to see comments here in a second once I figure out where I am in the world. So let me refresh the live. So for some reason I'm on the live and I can't see. No, I can't see anything. Let me look into YouTube Studio. Where are you looking at in YouTube Studio? And content or? Right. Where is Dr. Maxfield? I don't know where he is. All right. So now I can see all of your comments coming in. So good. Okay. Okay. Right. Where's Dr. Maxfield? I don't know where he is. Now you can hear feedback, right? From me? Okay, good, good. All right. Looks like everything is working. What are we talking about today? We're going to be answering skincare questions. We're also going to be building some skincare routine from there. So, yeah, this should be good. We haven't gone live in a while, but when we go live, it's usually a little bit chaotic. We have a lot of questions coming in. We do our best to answer as many questions as possible. So, any questions you leave in the chat, depending on what you all come up with here, we'll be answering some of those questions. Let me know if you can hear me and see me okay and everything is coming through clear. Dr. Maxfield is hopping on. Emma's asking me, do you prefer TikTok or YouTube? We actually just shot a video about this on our podcast. This was yesterday. And yeah, so basically we both sort of prefer YouTube over TikTok. And it's just more around the fact that on YouTube, you can go into like more detail, more nuance. And with the more nuance, like it's kind of more educational. Whereas like TikTok, like you kind of get bite-sized snacks of information. And sometimes that snack doesn't give you the complete picture of what you need to know in order to make good decisions about your skin. And so that's kind of the pitfall of short form content. But I kind of like both. I do both, but I probably prefer YouTube actually.
Yeah, it's on. Sound good? Oh yeah. Are we live on YouTube?
Yeah, we're live on YouTube, my friend.
Oh, well, let me go there. I got to watch this. I have to see because I don't know the comments.
Right.
There we go. Mute the tube. Montreal represents. Castor oil. Is it the bee's knees? That sounds like it needs to be addressed.
Do I thread my eyebrows? Yeah, that's actually my preferred method of eyebrow hair removal for several reasons. So the issue with waxing is that it pulls, especially if you're using retinol, that wax, I don't care if they tell you it's soft wax, hard wax, sugar wax, it's going to pull that top layer of the skin. And especially if you're on retinol and it's decreasing that skin cell stickiness, you could lift off the skin with it. And anytime anyone's ever gotten their eyebrows waxed, you'll be a little bit red around the eyebrows. So I get them threaded because threading, especially if they're good at it, kind of lifts it from the hair, from the root. And so to me, it's sort of the preferred option. You could individually tweeze each hair, but I find that you get better control with threading. So threading is my preferred route of hair removal for the eyebrows.
Have you ever tried a like Nair on the face?
I have not tried Nair on the face, and I feel like we would get very little control with Nair. And so the concern would be that it would probably take out more than I wanted it to.
Yeah, that's a very good consideration. Yeah, I've never done that either, just for the record.
Someone said, Lisa said, I hope you're going to talk about Remedy. We'll probably mention Remedy, but we'll probably answer a lot of other questions and recommend a lot of other brands here as well. I'm trying to find the balance of, like, obviously I'm obsessed with my own products, and I'm trying to find the balance of how much or how little to recommend them. Obviously at the launch, had to talk about them because we needed to tell you that they exist. But after that, I got to figure out a way to kind of like integrate them seamlessly without it over feeling like it's kind of taking over the channel. So I'm trying to find that balance. Sometimes if you feel like it's too much, let me know. If you feel like it's too little, let me know. But I'm trying to find a balance because I think that I want you all to feel like, you can still trust us on any recommendation across the board. So trying to integrate Remedy is going to be a challenge over the next couple months, but we're going to find a good balance, I think.
I'm just putting up the link on Instagram because I was going to go on Instagram Live, but since you're here too, I was like, that won't make any sense because then I'm going to talk and there'll just be silence when you're talking on Instagram.
Oh, really? Well, because you were going to, I see what you mean. You're going to go from your phone.
Sometimes I do both at the same time. So
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to throw this up for everybody on Instagram.
Thank you, Judy. I appreciate you. So someone, Dogmom421, said, tretinoin, after surgery, when they took the tape off my eyes, they pulled the skin off my eyelids. They were sore for a week. Oof. Yeah, exactly. So that's the concern is, well, anytime they do surgery, they tape your eyelids, and when you pull that tape up, it's gonna kind of pull the skin up with it, especially if you're using a retinoid. So sorry that you had to experience that. Japtej says a beard grooming routine. Let's talk about a beard grooming routine. This is a good question.
Okay, I'll take the first step, which is cleansing. I mean, that's the first step, right? I think cleansing with a beard routine is extremely important. I think it's more important than even cleansing your normal skin to some extent. I feel like so much of the beard problems, acne problems, seborrheic dermatitis problems, irritated, flaky skin problems can be helped with like a solid cleanser, making sure you're working it into and through the hair. But also, I think because the hairs are coarse, they're thick, they trap a lot of that sebum onto the skin or the oil onto the skin. And they also trap other things to the skin as well. And people don't aggressively clean that enough. So cleansing, I like sulfur cleansers. I like a good salicylic acid cleanser for someone with acne prone skin. But just making sure you get a really nice deep clean is pretty important. Up. Can you do that?
Can you do that? You can turn up your gain on the.
Yeah, I can.
So yeah, Dr. Maxwell's point. I've done videos that have talked about how you can actually transfer bacteria to other people from your beard. And there was these videos of like people on TikTok where they would like scratch their beard and sniff their fingers, which is disgusting. And they would be like, "Oh, it smells like cheese," which is not the intended smell. Oftentimes, when things smell like cheese, it's an indication that there's fungus or bacteria brewing there, which is why your dog's paws may smell like Doritos at times. It's the same thing that's kind of happening there. So a good deep cleanse in that area is always something that's going to be beneficial for you. And then you kind of have to figure out what works for you. Some people, especially if you have coarser hair, beard oils do great. For me, like I get a lot of ingrown hairs if I shave too short, especially on my neck. So I use an electric trimmer on my neck, and I just kind of design the line with the electric trimmer. And then I use a straight razor to edge up my beard at the top. And then I use clippers to trim it down to a 2. So that's kind of how I do it. So that's kind of my beard care routine. So simple cleanser, plus or minus a beard oil. If you're prone to ingrown hairs, I really like the Ordinary's 7% glycolic acid solution. I think it's a really good option. Glycolic acid is really good at helping to prevent ingrown hairs.
Yeah, I love your tidbit there that it breaks the disulfide bonds, helps prevent ingrown hairs. Glycolic acid is great.
Yep. All right, so let's see what other questions are coming in. My son uses minoxidil as well. What about the red light cap? It is a lot of money. Yeah, so Lisa, I know, gross. Yeah, so for hair loss, let's talk about hair loss in general. We've been kind of a lot of hair questions lately. I did on my Instagram story, I put up a question box like ask me anything, Q&A. And when I put up that Q&A box, probably about 50% of the questions, which is unusual, were hair questions, hair and hair loss questions. So I think a lot of people are really interested in hair lately. So with hair loss, like I genuinely believe this. If you've seen me talk about this before, it's become like my new thing. It's is like, I don't know if anyone else has referred to it this way, but I really look at hair like a garden. And in order for your garden to grow, you need to do many things. It's not like anti-aging and dark spots and other skin conditions where a lot of times, you can do one thing and that's going to usually see results. With hair loss, like I genuinely feel like you need to hit it from multiple angles in order for hair to work. Just like when you're growing a garden, you don't just need sunlight alone, and you don't just need water alone. You need like water plus sunlight, and you need fertilizer and good soil and all those things, right? So when it comes to hair loss, like minoxidil is probably going to be your go-to starting point for both men and women. And then for men, the next step would be to add finasteride. That's going to be like the water for your plant. And minoxidil is going to be like the sunlight for your plant. And so those are the kind of the foundational things. Now you can add in a red light therapy. That's going to be more like a fertilizer, just like PRP is more like a fertilizer, just like rosemary oil is going to be more of a fertilizer. Like they're not the foundation of growing the plant, but they definitely add to the growth of the plant. So I do think red light or low level light therapy is what it's called for the scalp is beneficial for hair growth, but you have to be consistent with it.
Yeah, I think red light therapy too. Just keep in mind, it's like that one-time investment. I honestly feel like when you purchase that device, I mean, it lasts you for what do you think, 5 years, 10 years? We don't even know the life on these things because I haven't had to repurchase mine.
Yeah, my red light mask has been steady. I know. I mean, sometimes like most of them come with a warranty, like a 1 or 2 year warranty. So you're gonna at least get 1 or 2 years out of it. If it's from a reputable brand, it could last for your lifetime, right? So one-time investment. If you think about it, amortizing it over the course of its lifespan, let's say you get 2 years out of it, divide that by 700 days, you end up less than $1 a day. It's still kind of expensive though. I do think, skincare, taking care of your skin is starting to become prohibitively expensive across the board though.
Yeah, it is. What can you describe the word amortize for?
Yeah, so amortization is like you kind of like it's usually spoken in terms of like finance where you with a loan like you amortize it over like a period, right? So like let's say amortization, the way that the word amortization basically means like let's say that you have something that you buy for $30, but then you kind of extend that over 30 days, then it's $1 a day essentially. So that's what amortization is. So when you look at like the lifespan, like when you look at a traditional skincare product, right? Like you look at our remedy products, like this is going to last you 2 to 3 months, right? Versus like a red, like, so when you look at the price of it, it's only going to last you 2 to 3 months versus like a red light mask, which will last you, 2 to 3 years. The cost is, when you amortize it over that time period, it's less of a hit than the initial upfront cost.
Yeah, that's how I amortize my relationship with you. It's like less of a hit if we spread it out over 40, 50 years. That's why
I don't know what that means.
I don't either. I still don't understand the word. So A question I saw was a really good one. It was, why does women's Rogaine say 2.5% and men says 5%? So I have actually a very strong opinion on this topic, because I remember there was a time I was a medical student. I was rotating in Florida with a dermatology group there, and I gave a presentation on hair loss. And looking at the studies, there is a direct study showing that 5% minoxidil topically is more effective than 2.5% minoxidil. And ever since then, I've planted my flag that everyone should be using the 5% minoxidil, barring irritation, because that was the only increased adverse event with the 5% minoxidil. I actually thought that there was something with the cosmetic monograph with the 5%. I was like, well, maybe it's just not studied in women for the 5%, and that's why they stick to this 2.5 versus 5% thing. I found opposite. I looked at the monograph, 5% has been studied in women. It was shown to be available there. So I think this is actually a pure marketing ploy. I'm not a fan of it. I think everyone should use the 5% minoxidil topically, unless irritation is an issue, because I am very confident and certain the 5% is going to be more effective across the board.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I never recommend 2% minoxidil pretty much to anybody. I guess unless you're sensitive to minoxidil, which a lot of people are. We've talked about this before, and a lot of people, the side effect that everyone always talks about with minoxidil is that you lose hair when you first start it, and you have to be on it long term, right? So that's what you always hear about. But a lot of people don't hear about, one, headaches. Some people get headaches because of the vasodilation, especially if you're somebody who's prone to migraines. Any type of vascular, anything that kind of dilates blood vessels or constricts blood vessels can trigger migraine. So headaches, I see in my patient population, and then fluid retention. Minoxidil is well known for its fluid retention. So when you dilate any type of blood vessel, you can get fluid to sort of leak out of those blood vessels. And so what ends up happening is like puffiness around the eyes. And if you're taking oral minoxidil, some people will get swelling in the legs. We call that edema. So people can get side effects with minoxidil. So barring any side effects, like as long as you can tolerate it well, I think pretty much universally across the board, I only recommend 5% minoxidil, regardless if you're a man or a woman.
Yeah. So many questions, so many good questions. Okay, so one is like, I took stitches out of the face early. What product can I use to help prevent further scarring? So stitches, we'll leave those in sometimes, 7 days for the face, 2 weeks for the body. Some gregarious, cautious, I guess it's the opposite thing. Some more extremely cautious people leave them in longer than that. But after it's closed up.
What's
Vaseline.
gregarious mean?
So gregarious kind of means outgoing, like, and full of personality, right?
Yeah.
You see, now this has turned into a vocabulary quiz.
But in terms of leaving the stitches in, can you
It's
explain
just
to
totally
me?
not relevant. That's why I switched and said cautious.
You're so funny.
I know. This is why we edit our videos. But anyway, so for the early wound healing, when it's still like kind of moist, or you feel like there's fluid leaking out, Vaseline is still a premier option in terms of wound healing. Once it's kind of dry though, and you've actually skinned over the top, that's when you switch to your silicone scar gels. We've talked about this probably more on the podcast than in actual videos, other than the scar video. But silicone scar gel, I use it actually for a period of 3 months after that, as my scars mature, just once a day to twice a day topically. And then that's your care longitudinally. You don't need to keep it covered with the silicone scar gel, but that's the next step.
Yeah, 100%. So, Vaseline initially, if it's still open, like you took out the stitches early and you can kind of see scab and all that, I would continue still with just plain Vaseline. And then, like Dr. Maxfield said, switch to something silicone based. When I got my surgery on my chest, like I got skin cancer removal, I use the silicone patches. I found that to be a lot more practical for me, because like the silicone gel like would get on my shirt. So I found that the by using like the silicone bandages, that those could stick and they wouldn't get on your clothing and you could reuse them. So I really like the silicone bandages, depending on where on the body you're using them. I think the face, it's more practical to use a gel, and on the body, I think it's more practical to use the patches a lot of times.
Yeah, good point. Hey, what kind of when you were in class? Right now, I have this like nervous energy, like I just want to be moving and going to get stuff. Like I'm going to go up and start getting products right now, just because I don't want to sit still. When you were in class, what were you? What kind of student were you? Were you a very barring medical school? Because we both know how we were in medical school. But before that, did you sit focused? Did you just not show up?
I was like, So yeah, I was like pretty much I wouldn't show up, and if I only like I was very engaged when I did show up. Like I made it count.
That sounds like
But
you.
I just like wouldn't show up. It's kind of
That's
like the
so
same thing. Like I'm same thing. Like socially, I'm still the same way. Like it's kind of I don't know if anyone else is like this because it's kind of like hard to explain. Like extrovert versus introvert. Like a lot of people just kind of lump people in two of these categories. So I definitely would like to hear from the chat, like what kind of person you are, if anybody is similar to what I'm going to describe I am. If I go out, I will talk to everybody, and I'm not gonna like go up to random people, but like I'll be like high energy, engaged, listening to people, responding to them, like I'll be locked in on the conversation. But my preference is to not leave my house, and I prefer to be alone, but if I'm out, I will socialize while I'm out. Like I will take advantage of that time to socialize, but I don't like yearn for that. Like I'd prefer to be home, but if I'm not home, I will optimize that experience.
yeah, that's fair. You are very much in the moment at any moment, and the rest of the world is dead to you. I see. I'm gonna go get some coconut oil since someone said the word coconut oil, and you can tell them if it's good for scars or not.
Somebody said it's called an ambivert. An ambivert. Ooh, I gotta look
I
this
like
word
that
up.
word.
A friendly introvert. Yeah, and I will say that like if but then afterwards I'm very drained. Like socially, like when I get home, I'm very drained. Like it actually it like takes something from me. Like I actually feel like I've lost something. It's kind of a weird feeling, but I feel wiped out after social interaction. Though I will like really engage with people. Like you would think that like this is like I'm extroverted, and so I don't know what to describe that as.
Yeah, I think you're just talented. You're an extremely charismatic person in person.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I do. I think you're tremendously talented. So the question that I was going to answer was coconut oil and is it good for scars? So coconut oil is actually one of my favorite plant-based ingredients. I'm just going to like. So this is one of the
Wait,
best.
I got this coconut oil too. Someone sent this to me.
It's
Who
because
sent
of
that to you?
It's because of Jill. So Jill texted. She's like, "Hey, Dr. Bronner's is my favorite brand of all time. I'm gonna have him send you some stuff." And so, coconut oil, one of the best studied plant-based ingredients. The knock on it, people will mostly claim, is that it's comedogenic. It's kind of semi-solid at room temperature. At least I'm gambling that it is, and
risking it all.
it is really well studied though. So I think as a body moisturizer, it's very, very good. It's been studied extensively in the eczema, atopic dermatitis population. The major knock on body oils in particular, I've heard it is kind of counterintuitive, is that they don't seem to last long on the skin. But if you have eczema, this is a great one. If you have a scar, I don't believe it's actually going to do nearly as much for you, but if you, as like a Vaseline, but if you are insistent upon using a plant-based ingredient, coconut oil is probably towards the top of the list in terms of hydrating ingredients for the skin or even a healing scar.
Interesting. Yeah, so coconut oil, yeah, I think is pretty underrated as a moisturizer. And then even for this hair, right? So one of the knocks on coconut oil, especially as a moisturizer for the face, is that it's considered to be comedogenic. And we need to kind of talk about pore clogging ingredients in general, because I feel very strongly about this term comedogenic or pore clogging. But maybe that's the next segue after this. But for the hair, like the actual hair strands, coconut oil is one of the best oils for the actual hair strands. So, if you're acne prone, maybe you don't want to get it on your face. Maybe you don't want to sleep with coconut oil because then it can roll onto your face. And maybe you want to wear like some kind of bonnet. But yeah, so don't put coconut oil probably on the face.
Let's see here. Oh yeah. Someone asked a good question about your dark spot product a little while ago. Boy, I wish there was some music popping. I told you I'm full of nervous energy this morning. It's because I didn't get to surf and I didn't get to work out yet. So I just need to move.
You didn't work out yet?
No, the
Dr. Maxfield, the AKA flex on camera, AKA
I don't know what you're talking about.
Out.
This never happens.
aka Smolder. We have like a really good video. I hope Pat can edit this into our next video. But we had this giant, like last time we filmed YouTube, we had this giant screen in front of us. And we don't usually have a screen in front of us when we record. So we could see ourselves while we were recording. And I had this great clip of Dr. Maxfield. He turns to the camera, he turns to the screen of himself, and he's like, he just immediately makes this face. And I'm going to try to replicate it, but I can't do it as well as he can. But it's like this. It's like this.
So
like he
painfully
immediately like
Zoolander-ish.
smolders on himself, and it was amazing. And I like, it was a moment to capture.
It's like I know the next shirt I need to have made for me. It's like Flynn Rider, like Flynn Rider's wanted poster from Tangled, and then me, I think.
I love it. I love it. All right. So wait, you said someone asked a good question about your about dark spots.
Yeah. So you have all these crazy ingredients, which I still haven't put up that fun little behind the scenes video yet. But they asked, what can you not use it with? And you know what's interesting about this? So from your list of ingredients, and if you want to quickly name them, you can. There's not actually many restrictions in terms of layering products. The main things you just want to do is not duplicate ingredients, and then monitor for irritation and back off on other irritating ingredients. But in my opinion, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, well, we have retinol, so I wouldn't use it with like a benzoyl peroxide. It's got retinol, mandelic acid, kojic acid, glutathione, licorice root, tranexamic acid, niacinamide, silymarin, acetylglucosamine, soy, others, THD ascorbate. So overall, like very, very stable formula. But retinol and BPO, I wouldn't use it together. I think it would oxidize our formula pretty rapidly. So I just wouldn't use it at the same. I wouldn't layer it with benzoyl peroxide, but otherwise it's pretty good. But it was made to not layer with other things. That's that's like, so specifically I was like, oh, I want to make this formula so it's just the only product you need to use at night. But I think some people still they have things they want to use, whether it's a toner. So we are getting questions like that, like toner or a peptide serum they want to use with it. And mostly those are going to be okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, what else would you want to layer in a sense? Because you basically have your cleansing and maybe moisturizer afterwards. But as far as other active ingredients, good luck squeezing anything else in that you haven't already used.
Right. Do you want to like pick up some questions here from the chat?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through here. Urticaria, azelaic acid, lactic acid, get rid of tanning, keloid scars, working on a Saturday morning, every Saturday morning. The 6-day work week is like normal and light. After residency, I think you kind of as a doctor get trained to do like a lot of extra work. So it feels normal. Okay, so we'll do, I don't know, urticaria. Urticaria is like a very tough thing to even talk about because urticaria are hives. These are where you get these raised flat circular plaques or bumps on the body, on the face. They can be itchy, but they're highly transient, meaning that if you circle them, they will disappear actually within 24 hours or move to another place. The hardest thing to deal with these or to do with these is to find a cause. So like supportively, you can come behind it reactively and treat them because if you can use broad anti-inflammatories, steroids can help, of course, but then you have some control with some non-sedating antihistamines like Allegra. You can use it up to 4 times a day as is studied for urticaria or hives. And there are some other more targeted medications. I'm convinced Dupixent is going to be a miracle for hives if they ever throw a study into there. But at the time, you're kind of left topically treating it reactively, but the cause is almost never found. And especially even if it's chronic, because you could have acute and chronic urticaria. I think it's arbitrarily split within a 6-week period. But for those people who struggle with it for a long period of time, you may never find a cause. In fact, the majority of people don't have a clear identifying trigger. Sometimes it's because your body actually has created an autoimmune cascade that's perpetuating these hives. It's from the high affinity FCE receptor, and we can actually test for that.
Okay. Yeah. No. That's a thorough response. Hives are frustrating for people. I always think about, I don't know if you it's interesting. Like the way I look at some of the patient interactions that I have, some of the ones always stick with me is when a patient comes in very emotional.
Mhm.
And it's really interesting to me. There are certain conditions where certain conditions affect people more than other ones do. And we treat and diagnose a lot of skin cancers, and oftentimes I don't see a very emotional response to skin cancer. Now, it could be just because most of that population is a little bit older, and maybe it's not their first skin cancer, and so they know kind of how to deal with it. And certainly there is, but hair loss, especially in women, and urticaria, hives. Those two conditions, I find that people are very emotional when they come in because they seem to really affect the quality of life for people. Getting hives spontaneously and that are really itchy or sometimes even painful really affects the quality of people's lives. And the frustrating thing as a physician is that a lot of times, like Dr. Maxfield said, we never find the actual cause of those hives. We literally, it's one of the few conditions that we just treat symptomatically, meaning we are just literally putting a band-aid on it until it goes away. And a lot of times it just goes away on its own, which is good. But usually antihistamines is the best step, and then you can use things like Xolair, and then eventually it usually goes away on its own. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year. I've had patients that have had it 4 years, which to just break out in hives spontaneously is very, very frustrating. So I definitely empathize with that.
Yeah, definitely.
I pinned a comment here from Kevin asking best way to start adapalene. So do we want to give some tips on just starting any retinoid product in general?
Yeah, you bet. The nice thing about adapalene specifically is just because it's so stable, layering becomes less of an issue. So you don't have to be necessarily as cautious with when you use it and what you're using it with. However, the same starting plan for any retinoids or any retinoid holds true. So we can start off with, the use every few nights, work up to nightly goal. Basically, you want to work your skin up to tolerate this. And maybe one, I think you had this rule of weeks, but like for 1 week or 2 weeks, every few nights, then the next week, every other night. And then after that, every night. And then hopefully you're at goal with frequency. Did you have another one? Another tip?
Oh,
I was leaving it open for you to pick up.
We're gonna do like a back and forth.
figured.
Yeah. I said the rule of threes. I think it makes a lot of times like coming up with rules is helpful. We have a video basically that's like there are no rules in skincare. So this is not like a hard and fast rule, but I think if you're new to retinol, a really good starting point is every third night for the first month, and then the second month every other night, and then by the third month you should be trying to use it every night if possible. You can also do the retinol sandwich. This is where you do your moisturizer first, your retinol next, your moisturizer again over the top of that, and that kind of helps to soften the blow. Some people even do short contact therapy with retinoids where they leave them on for like 2 or 3 hours and then they wash it off before they go to bed to ease into it. But I prefer like kind of like the every third night approach kind of as a starter. And then, you want to use a pea size amount. You don't want to use it with other actives, especially when you're first getting used to it. And then eventually kind of like ease into it. So those would be my tips for starting adapalene as well. And then just being aware of, I put out a video on Instagram probably a month ago now, but there are expected and unexpected side effects with retinoids. So like when you're starting adapalene, if your skin is like a little bit flaky, that's kind of normal and you can kind of decrease the frequency, like I said. If you're starting to purge, that's normal also because it's going to be pushing out a lot of the acne that was sitting underneath the skin. But if you start to develop like an itchy rash, that's not normal. That's an allergic reaction. Anytime you develop an itchy rash to a product, that is generally indicative of a allergic reaction. That's a product that you would want to stop.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's another thing I need to launch out, but then there's this irritation versus allergy idea. And all the allergies are what we talk about most, especially with the itching and if it extends well beyond where you use it. An allergy is where it kicks in your immune system. More commonly, you'll have irritant reactions, and it doesn't have to be even to like a known irritant. Just some things can be irritating, but that's another consideration. And then you can actually retry it again. Irritation reactions, typically the skin will be red, burny, stingy, as opposed to itchy. That's not a hard and fast rule. But if you have like an irritation, red, burny, stingy, flaky after using it, you may be able to retry again just in a different way, especially with an irritating ingredient. So
Absolutely. Oh, and Pat, definitely feel free to pin comments that you see coming through the chat that you think would be good for us to answer. I'm just recognizing you. Thank you for the kind words. You all, I have nothing to say about your support because you guys came through. I am so grateful for all of you because on launch day, you all showed up. You showed up in the comments. You showed up on sharing stories. You left reviews for products. You guys came through for us. So thank you so much. I can't say enough about the support for Remedy. The responses have been incredible, and I just hope that you all see results and let us know about the results that you see. Azelaic acid is an ingredient that has most of its benefits at higher concentrations, and it can be like a little bit gritty of a formula. There's a really good azelaic acid product from Theramid. What's the name of that brand?
I think there's two names, but Niche Beauty.
Niche Beauty Labs.
Yeah.
Niche Beauty Labs has a 15% azelaic acid product. I think it's phenomenal.
So good.
And yeah, that's a good option. Will we create a product with azelaic acid one day? Definitely. I mean, it's one of my favorite ingredients. But to get a good formula with azelaic acid at the concentration, because if you just sprinkle in a little bit of azelaic acid, you're not gonna see meaningful results. Like, concentrations do matter, and so we're trying to get like a higher concentration of azelaic acid into a formula. So that's going to take a little bit of time, but it's definitely on my radar. So thank you for the suggestion. And also anything that you'd all like to see from Remedy next, because we know that Remedy for dark spots, Remedy for pore size, Remedy for dry lips, that's not going to be for everybody. Not everybody has these issues. So if you have a particular issue you want us to create a product for, just let me know in the chat, and we'll add it to our list for product development. Yeah. Cool.
So the question that Pat pinned then is starting isotretinoin or Accutane for cystic acne, ice pick scars next week. Excited and terrified, which is probably reasonable considering especially the social conversation on it. How can I prepare myself for the best results while limiting the side effects? So I think one of the more important things when starting Accutane isotretinoin to realize is, of course, everyone knows you're going to shift and become very dry. This is the universal, consistent thing that people deal with on it. And with that comes the statement that you don't need to use any other acne actives when you start this medication. That's one of the easiest ways to set yourself up for failure because most acne ingredients are irritating, they can be drying, and isotretinoin or Accutane actually does all the work. So you really just need to shift a whole skincare routine towards dry, sensitive skin. I still love the Cicaplast Balm for patients with this. I love a lot of LRP moisturizers actually for this. And then sure, Remedy for lips is great. LRP is good chapstick, but you really are going to have to go out of your way to protect and hydrate that skin. That's a consistent recommendation across the board.
Yeah, so there's a lot of lip products out there. Dry lips is going to be like the number one thing that you see when you start Accutane, because Accutane just obliterates your oil sebaceous glands. And, the lips already inherently don't have a thick or at all have a stratum corneum in many cases. And so you're going to lose a lot of moisture to the environment, and you're also not going to be producing as much oils. So dry lips is almost universally one of the main complaints that we get for people who are on Accutane. And a lot of the lip products that are out there are more like lip decoration, which are great products, but they either are very fragrant or they taste like a mint or something like that. And so so just look for something that is going to be limited ingredients, that's going to be truly hydrating, that's going to be truly occlusive, that's going to really try to lock in as much as it can. Aquaphor, Vaseline. I mean, this is why we created Remedy for dry lips, specifically for instances like this. So it has both the lipids and the ingredients that can lock in ingredients, but find something that you like texture wise. But yeah, so that would be the biggest advice, is you need something that's going to moisturize your skin if you're on Accutane, because that's going to be your biggest complaint.
Just looking at this chat here, just following along.
What is good sunscreen for teenagers on a budget?
The ink I used about 15 sunscreens yesterday. Just
15 sunscreens yesterday.
just one of those
What were you
videos.
doing?
Just trying on. You got to keep up with the sunscreens, So someday I'll just batch wear, put it on, see how it blends, see how it feels, wipe it off, do it again, do it again, do it again. It's a hard life. The Inky List polyglutamic acid sunscreen is pretty inexpensive, and it's a smaller volume, but it's like for sunscreen, facial sunscreen is pretty darn average for volume. Price is decent.
What's the price?
I think it's less than 20.
Inky List sunscreen. I didn't know they had a sunscreen. $15. It's not bad.
And it blends aesthetically. It's nice. Ingredient profile is good. So I think they did a good job with that one. The K Beauty sunscreens, they're relatively affordable. The volume
They're
again is
really
small, but
affordable.
yeah, still kind of hitting that under $20 mark, which I still feel like once I cross, even though $20 is hard to even hit for sunscreens or facial skincare products in general, like there's still a few sunscreens you can get for less than that.
Yeah, the Beauty of Joseon sunscreen, $15. Great sunscreen. So there's a lot of K Beauty sunscreens that are less than $20. I like the Neutrogena Hydro Boost sunscreen a lot. Let me see how much that one costs. I don't know if you've tried it. I think we've tried it. We've talked about it. That one's $16. So that's like relatively affordable. And I agree, kind of sunscreens across the board are like unaffordable. So especially like when we were telling you to use as much as we're telling you to use. So that's tough. Next question would be any recommendation for itchy dandruff scalp? Nizoral has done nothing and can dry my curly hair. Topical steroids have done nothing and I'm prone to thick scales from scratching. That's interesting.
That's I find that that's not uncommon where a person will fail a usually successful dandruff shampoo. And it's for maybe a couple of reasons. Nizoral has a great ingredient, ketoconazole. It's half the concentration as prescription. So even perhaps doubling that to prescription strength can help. Sometimes that's not quite enough and we'll switch to another ingredient like cyclopirox. But I typically will find that for someone who struggles with these ingredients altogether, having a much more thorough and robust scalp routine can be helpful. So I would hit it with I personally often recommend like a salicylic acid pre-treatment. I think Briogeo has one I really like. Or you can just go with Neutrogena T-Sal. Then you work it in. You scrub it in with one of those silicone brushes. This is all pre-wash. And after that, after you let it sit, scrub it, rinse it. Then you hit it with your dandruff shampoo. Make sure it's on your scalp for 3 to 5 minutes. And then you rinse that. And then you have to come behind that. Even with a post-treatment like Leave-On's serum, you can do, again, a sal acid thing. They have ones with tea tree oil. And if that ever had a functional benefit, this would be where it is. But I do find that complete routines have to work for some people, especially those who wash their hair infrequently. Because like for me and a lot of guys, we wash our hair once a day, twice a day, even with dandruff shampoos. And it doesn't matter. Hair doesn't get dry. Hair doesn't get brittle. Scalp isn't too irritated because we have shorter hair often. But for people who wash their hair infrequently, it makes it much more difficult. And so you really have to hit it hard when you hit it. And then for the dry part of the hair, especially after you use dandruff shampoo, that's tough because almost all dandruff ingredients are very drying. Whether it's ketoconazole, selenium sulfide, zinc pyrithione, they all are drying them for the hair. And so using a moisturizer, like a conditioner, actually may be fairly helpful. I know Nizoral has a conditioner, but you basically at that point, I'm like, use a conditioner you love that gives your hair the volume or whatever aesthetics you want it to, because you've already done the work for the dandruff with the active ingredients before that.
Yeah, great tips. Dandruff can be frustrating. I think also when you talk about scaly scalp, like just making sure that you have the right diagnosis there. This person is saying they use Nizoral, they use steroids. They're still getting really kind of thick, scaly, flaky scalp. Probably the two kind of possible diagnoses here is dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis. That's one category that's caused by a yeast, and ketoconazole, cyclopirox tends to do really well with it. And then you also have scalp psoriasis, which can also cause flaky plaques on the scalp. That's not going to respond as well to Nizoral. We'll do a little bit better with steroids, depending on how strong they are. But a lot of times scalp psoriasis is very resistant to almost all treatments. and we end up having to treat it with biologic medications. And so making sure you have the right diagnosis, going back to your dermatologist and kind of evaluating the diagnosis again can be helpful. But like Dr. Maxfield said, hitting it from multiple directions is usually the approach for something that's a little bit atypical and being a little bit resistant to treatment.
Yeah. Diagnosis is important. Establishing a clear diagnosis is like, because you have psoriasis, which is really easy to masquerade for that. You have other conditions that can mimic just common dermatitis or dandruff rather. So you need to make sure you're treating the right thing. There we go.
Someone sent us 690 in a currency I'm unfamiliar with. What is this currency? Thank you, by the way. Let me answer your question. It's okay. Let's see. So please do a piercing aftercare video. Okay, piercing aftercare, which this is something that came up because my wife got some piercings done, and then she started to develop like piercing bumps afterwards. So I had to learn a lot more about piercings and how to take care of them as a result of that. It's not part of our traditional thing. We actually in dermatology will repair piercing. So like sometimes people will like either rip through their earlobe or they get gauges and that expands their earlobe a lot and they want to fix that. And so in dermatology, a lot of times we will fix earlobes. We'll stitch them back together. But otherwise, we don't do like a ton of piercing care unless there's a complication from it. So saline washes are really, really helpful at first. You want to leave it in, and saline washes are really kind of your go-to. Now, if you develop a piercing bump, they or like it's almost like a kind of like a little baby keloid that develops there. What you want to do is you want to continue to wash it with the saline washes, but then also like get one of these like little they're like I forget what they're called, but they're like these you can go back to the piercer and they'll give you these like plates essentially to put on either side of the piercing, and it kind of like squeezes the bump together. And then sometimes like if you come to see a dermatologist and you're having a piercing bump or a keloid forming, we can inject it with steroids early and to try to stop that from happening. But usually saline washes are going to be your best bet. And if you wanted something that was more antibacterial as a wash, then chlorhexidine can be a good option. But otherwise, you don't really have to do much during the healing process. Your body is going to react how it reacts, and we kind of, as doctors, will react to how your body is reacting. But some people have no reaction and they do really well with just the washes, and then other people have to do more to prevent any issues. But I see piercing complications all the time. Nice. Okay. Thank you, Pat.
I didn't realize this didn't populate through what the YouTube placeholder. So some people were texting me. They're like, "Hey, the link you put up didn't work for the YouTube live."
Ooh.
And I was
I
like,
wonder if I'm having the same issue.
You're right. So I had to go back and fix that, which is kind of sad because we're pretty far into this, but that's okay. So the YouTube live isn't through the placeholder, like the scheduled program I created. So this is just like its own separate thing. So anyone who goes to that isn't getting in. Anyone who's doing anything isn't getting in. Anyone who goes to the link I put up on social isn't. Yeah, we'll have to do it differently next time, but that's okay.
I guess I'll take this down, this story. I don't know.
Yeah, I just had to put up a new link on mine because you can find the link. It's just kind of hard to get to. Oops. Yeah, next time we'll do a different one, a software or something. So lip lines are difficult. So this is like the smokers lines that occur in non-smokers. That's probably the most misunderstood thing here. Is not from smoking necessarily. It's just from life. And it's from the orbicularis oris, the muscle around the mouth. When it moves, the skins move, just like the forehead, and you get those vertical lines that radiates out. So what to do for this? I don't know if you have any good tips for this area, because this is a tough spot in that the skin is somewhat sensitive. So hero ingredients for texture and lines like retinoids, exfoliators, they can struggle with being tolerated here. So it's another like home hack for my wife. The Rock retinol eye cream has actually been a hero for her in this area. Different problem, but great results. And I really do feel like resurfacing procedurally is probably the best way to get any meaningful response here. I have never seen anyone hit this area aggressively with Botox. I don't think that's a good option because we need our mouth functionally throughout the day. But so resurfacing lasers gets people the best results there, like CO2 erbium.
Definitely. Yeah, this is a common area. I've seen a lot of videos where people, even dermatologists, and I don't want to be critical of anybody's content, but the concept of like, if you kiss people, you will develop lip lines. If you use a straw, you will develop lip lines. If you, it's like, well, you got to also like live life, like, and unless you have a straw and you're in that position for like 20 hours a day, it's probably not contributing that much to developing wrinkles around the mouth. So I don't think you need to change your behaviors in any way. I agree with Dr. Maxfield. Lasers, microneedling, chemical peels are going to do much
Peels.
better in this area. Fillers or anything like that, I haven't seen great results. Some people will do like a light amount of Botox, like 1 or 2 units in this area, but I think it does better to like lift the lip than it does to soften out those wrinkles around the lip. So I totally agree with you. I think you need kind of deeper resurfacing lasers to see a big benefit. And then, of course, bringing your retinol down to that area can do really, really well. So, that's probably going to be your best option.
Lip filler took care of the lines. So lip filler, interestingly, yeah, depending on where you put it and how you use it, sometimes it just stretches out adjacent areas, which can minimize lines. Like you'll see that a lot of times with these melolabial or nasolabial folds. And then you actually put filler not in an adjacent area, and it lifts and it softens up these lines here. So that's another way to do it. But let's see here.
Yeah, let's answer some of these thiamidol questions. What's your opinion of thiamidol? So thiamidol is a pigment inhibiting ingredient that is patented by Eucerin or the Beiersdorf brands, which owns Eucerin and Aquaphor. Really effective ingredient according to all the studies that they've put out. In fact, thiamidol has a lot more studies than this new. So La Roche-Posay came out with this new ingredient called Malazil. And Malazil has a lot less data. It only has like 1 or 2 studies that were done by L'Oreal, whereas thiamidol actually has a lot more studies. They've done a lot more better, well-controlled studies. So I actually think thiamidol works. The only problem with thiamidol, the products that they've created, I think all of them have fragrance. So I wish they would come out with like a fragrance-free version of these products, because I do think thiamidol is a great ingredient. I do think when you're treating hyperpigmentation and dark spots, multiple ingredients is the best path forward, because thiamidol is a pigment inhibiting ingredient, right? So what happens, and we kind of talk about this in our Fade Dark Spots video, so you can go watch the whole thing. And I do have a little bias here because I created a dark spot treatment, but regardless of how you want to treat dark spots, whether it's with Remedy for dark spots or any other product, you really need to treat all 3 steps of dark spot creation, which is tyrosinase, the enzyme, creates melanin. And so when melanin is created, that step is inhibited by a lot of ingredients. And so they're pigment forming inhibitors, right? So they only block new pigment from forming. They don't remove existing pigment that's already formed, and they don't remove any pigment that kind of escapes that mechanism of inhibiting it, right? So when you're treating dark spots, you want to treat both the formation step, that's that tyrosinase enzyme step. You also want to target the transfer of pigment to the skin cells, and you also want to target the pigment once it's deposited in the skin cells. So a complete routine for hyperpigmentation and dark spots is going to target all 3 steps. Now, thiamidol is one good step, but you would want to use thiamidol with a retinol a few times a week, or alternate it with retinol, because that's going to help to remove the pigment that's already deposited. Or you want to exfoliate 2 nights a week to help to remove the pigment that's already deposited. So thiamidol, I do think, is a good ingredient. Just kind of rotate it so that you can actually remove existing pigment. This is why we created Remedy for dark spots, because it has all of these ingredients stuffed into one formula, 9 active ingredients into one product. And so that the way I looked at it was to simplify people's routine. We could target all 3 steps in one product, but you can also use thiamidol with retinol, and you'd probably get really good effects with that as well.
Yeah, definitely. These novel ingredients. I'm just gonna stand up so y'all can appreciate my shirt. Sometimes I just gotta move. I haven't moved enough today. But so yeah, there's so many like novel ingredients that come out, especially in the L'Oreal wheelhouse, and it's tough to know what to do with them. I think Aminexil, I've talked about that before. Like, what do you do with this ingredient? It's in hair products. It has been studied against Minoxidil, was shown to be inferior, but can still help with hair growth. So is that a good complementing ingredient we should use? They don't advertise for it like that. But I think you have to take a lot of these novel ingredients with a grain of salt. You can try them, see how they do throughout the test of time, see what new information comes out. Reba, do you agree?
Yeah.
Yep. So I think we're all on the same page with this sort of thing. Yeah, just take these new ingredients with a grain of salt. I do trust L'Oreal a lot because their R&D, I think, is truly world class. And they have a very, very high standard. Okay, another question that I see is, yeah, I'm trying to catch up on some of those.
Let's answer some of those questions.
Is it
safe
your
for
retinoid?
RX
Yeah.
retinoid? Also, well, I don't want to also encourage, I know that some people are doing like super chat, which we're not like streamers, so I don't really know much about this world, but
Yeah.
people are essentially like donating money, and that is making their chat appear larger for us. I think it's called the super chat, and we appreciate that genuinely, but we'll also answer your question whether or not you super chat us. So I don't want to encourage, I don't want to encourage or discourage the behavior, but don't feel like you have to super chat in order for us to respond to you. So is it safe to use RX retinoids like Akleaf and tretinoin? Jordan, thank you, by the way. Canadian currency coming in here. Akleaf and tretinoin on your body long-term for anti-aging. Yeah, so you can use Akleaf and tretinoin on the body long-term for anti-aging, and it's going to have profound benefits. But I always say to people, that's going to get expensive pretty quickly now, because just the larger surface area of applying a retinoid over such a large part of the body, whether it's the hands or the chest, wherever you're targeting, it's going to work really, really well. It's just that you're going to go through a tube faster than other people. So it's safe to use long-term, and it's effective to use long-term. And we have almost 60 years of data now on the long-term safety and efficacy of retinoids. Dr. Maxfield and I both trained with a dermatologist that started using tretinoin 40 years ago. And her skin looks phenomenal. So yes, it works really well long-term. It's just going to get expensive for you if you do it that way.
Yeah, totally agree. I think Akleaf, I still say it's a very selected one, so it works on a very specific receptor for retinoids. One, in fact, to minimize irritation. How well does it work for anti-aging? Who knows? There are 0 studies on it. Could it be a class effect? Could it be helpful across the board? Possibly. But if you're going to use a retinoid for anti-aging, I would not go with Akleaf at the moment. It is not photostable, at least that they know. I asked the reps, I asked the company, nothing in their package insert about photostability. So again, Akleaf has a lot of nuance to it. I'd go with anything else. Yes, this is my favorite shirt of all time. I actually almost bought 10 shirts. I probably will. I'm one of the people, you find something you love, I'll buy 10 of it, and I will only
What
wear
is
them.
that?
This is Reba McEntire, Fancy. You ever heard that song?
No, I haven't heard
from
that
my nurse.
song.
It's from my nerd. Most of my clothes actually now are at this
But
point.
I think the other day I mentioned somebody and you were like, I don't know who that is. I was like, oh, like Drake. And you're like, who's Drake?
Yeah, we live in different worlds in a way.
And I'm supposed to know Reba McEntire. I mean, probably phenomenal. Let's get some maybe. Are we allowed to, Pat, in the editing room back there? Are we allowed to play music on this, or are we going to get banned? You think I'd like to throw on some Reba McEntire right now?
I know.
Is it risky? Should we not do it?
I don't know how streaming works either.
That's so lame. The only problem is that it's going to live on the YouTube channel, so we'd probably be okay. But if we were on TikTok live, we could play music and no one would care. But I think the problem is that we're going to post this to YouTube afterwards, so they'll probably ban the video.
Yeah.
Melinda Perez, can I use salicylic acid while using CeraVe resurfacing serum and vitamin C, one at morning, one at night? Love you guys. Thank you, Melinda. Love you too. CeraVe resurfacing retinol at night, perfect to use. Use this salicylic acid and vitamin C. Vitamin C in the morning, apply it first after cleansing. CeraVe resurfacing at night. You can use the salicylic acid and the CeraVe resurfacing retinol serum together. The risk would be irritation. So like you got to listen to your own skin. If you're noticing irritation with it, I'd use the salicylic acid 2 nights a week, and I'd use the CeraVe resurfacing retinol 5 nights a week, and then I'd use the vitamin C in the morning 7 days a week. So that's how I do it. Any other thoughts, Dr. Maxfield?
No, that's perfect. Perfect. Should microneedling skin pen or microneedling or a pen not be used if you
Yeah, you didn't know who Pharrell was. That's what Natasha said.
Who? Yeah, Will Ferrell. I don't know.
Not
who
Will
this is.
Ferrell. Pharrell, the singer, the icon, the creative director of Louis Vuitton, the founder of Human Race, the skincare brand, the Human Race, the clothing line, that's done collabs with Adidas.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know this person. I've never heard of this person before you. But yeah,
I'm happy.
Oh, I know
No?
that song. I'm happy. Some. Yeah.
Yeah.
Microneedling. Okay, basically the question is, should you microneedle if you're prone to keloiding? I would say no. I think anyone who has keloids, you have a propensity to keloid and scar from trauma. And so I think the same rule applies for tattoos in that population. Is anytime needle hits skin, anytime trauma hits skin, world hits skin, there's a risk for significant scar formation. So I would advise probably to avoid that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you could test a spot on the arm or something, but if you're really prone to keloids, you wouldn't want to find out after doing your entire face that you're going to keloid. I think it's just way too risky, and keloids are very, very difficult to treat. So I would test a spot if you're really adamant about trying it. But if a patient came into me, I would test the spot, and I wouldn't do a whole face until I knew that they weren't going to react to it.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great way to approach it. Wow, everyone knows who Pharrell is. PH Pharrell too. Not, it's like the soft F.
Yeah, it is. Some people know Reba as well, so I'm going to give you that. So should I double cleanse and exfoliate every day? You can double cleanse every day. I wouldn't exfoliate every day unless you're using a gentle exfoliant. There are exfoliants that are gentle to use every day, but you just wouldn't want to do it. You wouldn't want to like overdo it. Like a high strength exfoliant 7 nights a week would be probably a little bit rough on your skin. Nerly is making some pancakes while listening to us, so
nice.
that sounds delicious. Unfortunately, I'm fasting, so that just made me hungrier. Jay Parker said, loving Remedy lip treatment and dark spot serum. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. When you get like when you make a product and then now people are using it and then they're giving you feedback on how it feels and the results, like it's such an incredible, it's like a very surreal experience. Like I don't even know how to describe it in words, but it's an amazing experience to get feedback from all of you. So thank you. That means a lot to me. Those are the things that are, that mean a lot to me. They mean the most to me.
That's the needling one. Yeah. I'm looking for this Elemis cream.
Don't do it. You'll get in trouble. Don't do it. I'm like really behind on comments. Hang on. I'm trying to catch up. Tips for fungal acne, por favor. Fungal acne is malassezia folliculitis. I think we can project like images. I think in the future, I really when I used to go live on Amazon, I would show images of like every condition that I was talking about. And I don't know that we have the capability to do that on Riverside. I know that we can project. I know we can share screen, but I think it would take over the entire screen instead of like putting a little bubble in the corner, where I know on OBX we can show an image, but I want to show an image of what it looks like. But maybe we can do that in the future. But fungal acne, also known as malassezia folliculitis, is these like kind of itchy bumps. They all kind of look flat. They can kind of show up on the back and the chest. And it occurs more often than we kind of realize. I really believe that the best option is to just use a dandruff shampoo on the face and leave it on like a face mask for 2 to 3 minutes before you wash it off. Using Nizoral shampoo is a really good option, but it can be a little irritating for people. Using selenium sulfide shampoo or Selsun Blue. Some people do really well with even sulfur soaps. So all of those things, anything that can kill yeast will do really well for fungal acne. Do you need to avoid certain ingredients in your skincare if you are prone to fungal acne? I would say the only ingredient I would avoid is olive oil, because olive oil is essentially a petri dish for all things yeast. And so the olive oil is the only thing I would avoid. Otherwise, just use something that can kill the yeast and you'll probably be in pretty good shape. And fungal acne isn't like traditional acne where you should be dealing with it long term. Once you treat it, you shouldn't have it come back.
Whew. $140 this. Wow. So let's take a look together. Another question. I knew I had this somewhere. If you haven't been in my room, which hopefully none of you have, it's like a Ulta Sephora in here, meets Kohl's. So I've got this product. Let's look at the ingredients together. So we're looking at the Elemis Pro Collagen Marine Cream together. The list of ingredients starts with water, glycerin, triglycerides, et cetera, functional preservative fillers, dimethicone, fragrance, pretty high up, vitamin E, shea butter, wheat germ oil, et cetera, ginkgo, linalool, citronol, limonene, geraniol. So I was going to put this on my face, and now I'm not sure.
Do it.
I still have videos to shoot today. I can't destroy myself.
You know what is amazing about this? And I don't want to gloat.
Okay. Oh.
But when we first started doing social media and we did YouTube together, and you can go back and watch the old videos, Dr. Maxfield would not react to anything. He thought he was invincible. There's a video of him that got a little bit of traction in the forums, which is never a good thing, that Dr. Maxfield applies tretinoin multiple times a day. And this is, but now you'll notice he's a little more nervous about what he applies to his skin, because you got to play with fire and get burned. That's the only way the boy ever going to learn, is the quote. And so now that he's been burned by a few skincare products with fragrance and common allergens, he's now coming over to my side of things. When people remember my very irritated eyelids, I used to get criticized often about this, but now I'm not gloating, but I'm just saying,
Yeah, not gloating, but gloating. To be clear, I was kind of teasing in that video, like, I don't know. It just didn't, who knows? It was like one of the first videos ever. I was kind of like teasing to get a reaction from Dr. Shah. But I can just anecdotally use tretinoin multiple times a day in the nose area. Nothing happens. So back to topic, point at hand. This is a $140 cream.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Maxfield, real quick.
Yes, what you got?
On Elemis, right?
Yes, okay.
$140. Would you ever, honestly, recommend a $140 moisturizer to your mom?
No.
Okay.
No, unless what? I don't know. Unless she really liked it for some reason. But then I didn't recommend it. She liked it to begin with. It's like, functionally, what is it doing for that dollar worth, So, and in this product, based off of the ingredients, at best it's a strong moisturizer, at worst it's a strong allergen. So, I don't know. I'm now that you asked, that was an extremely long answer with an anecdotal try. It felt fine. Not a fan though. So there's that.
Okay. Good. Fair. All right. So let's see what else we got here. Which is more effective, 2% retinoid or 0.5% tretinoin? That's kind of hard to say. What retinoid? Yeah. Are they referring to maybe the Grand Active retinoid from The Ordinary? Hard to know which product you're talking about, and it's hard to compare. There is the percentages that are important. Like I said, percentages do matter, but then also the vehicle in which the vehicle is what else is in the product. So tretinoin can become more effective. If it's in a base, like a moisturizer base that helps it to penetrate better into the skin. So it's hard to know which is going to be more effective unless you compare them side by side. But generally, tretinoin is going to be more effective because it's the active form. of retinoid. And so, it's generally going to be more effective for people, but also can be more irritating for people because it's active. Fungal acne, you should change your pillowcases every night. I think changing your pillowcases go a lot further than you realize, even for regular acne. So not that you realize, like that even I realized ultimately, is that it made a big difference with my skin when I started changing out my pillowcases, my towels, and my bed sheets more often.
Yeah, I agree. Hygiene is a problem for a lot of young individuals. I was one of those individuals. I didn't have a bed for a solid 4 or 5 years of my life. I slept on the floor throughout college.
Wait,
So
you didn't have a mattress or you didn't have a bed?
both. I just slept literally. It was carpet floor, sheets,
Really?
pillow.
In
Yeah, for
college?
years. Mm-hmm. Just
Wow.
can't deal with the inconvenience of a bed.
Did you stay in a dorm?
Mm-mm.
You stayed at home?
It was at I lived with a friend. Yeah,
You lived with a friend
he
on
was
the floor?
messier than I was.
I literally was thinking about this morning. When I was in med school, I had a mattress on the floor. One of these like Zinus mattresses, like is an Amazon brand, and these are like phenomenal mattresses. They used to be like $400. I think they've raised the price. But it was it was a great mattress. Maybe it was like $200. I don't remember how much it was. It was on the floor for like the longest time. No bed frame essentially. And my wife essentially made me get a bed frame. And I think about this often because I don't think I ever got any, like, it didn't make my life any better to have the bed frame, quite honestly. Like, I was just as happy with the mattress on the floor as I as I was when the mattress was elevated above the floor. So I was just thinking about, like, if I had not met my wife, would I ever have gotten a bed frame? And I don't know. The answer is yes. I don't know.
See, I'm 100% with you. This is like a new series. Life care you don't need. Mattress, bed frame, maybe just bed frame. Well, there's a question here that actually stuck with us probably for the whole hour. It was sulfur. And basically, does sulfur help acne? It was like one of the first questions I saw, and I just saw it popped up again. So we have to do that. Sulfur is actually one of my personal favorite ingredients. However, it is not to be overhyped, meaning that it's not extremely effective, in my opinion, for acne. And I think it is a hero ingredient for rosacea, but not because it's super wildly effective, although I do think it can be helpful. But I do believe it's quite a bit gentler or more gentle than a lot of other acne ingredients. So people with acne or rosacea will be able to tolerate it better. And I do also believe that, especially in its prescription formulations, it can shine as a cleanser, which is a nice quality that not a lot of ingredients, I feel like, can say if they could talk. So I love sulfur. I think it can be helpful for acne. I think it's actually a great ingredient for acne and rosacea. But it's probably like a tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 in overall acne ingredients for me.
Yeah. Sulfur is kind of going through its hype cycle right now. Sulfur actually has very limited data, interestingly enough. It's been used in dermatology forever. It's on the acne monograph. But it has like, it's also on the dandruff monograph. It has like very limited clinical studies done on sulfur. So it's hard to say, like, what does it do outside of anecdote and personal experience with it. Usually it's like second or third line for me as far as like a cleanser. Like I'll have patient try a sal acid cleanser and then a benzoyl peroxide cleanser. And then if they're not responding to that for acne, then I'll try sodium sulfacetamide or a sulfur cleanser. And they tend to do really well after that, right? So usually it's kind of like on my treatment ladder. It's kind of further down the ladder than some of the other traditional ones that have more data to support their efficacy, especially benzoyl peroxide. But I do find it in that, like Dr. Maxfield said, like that very select group of people who have acne rosacea or papulopustular rosacea, which I wish we could show an image of. But pimple-like rosacea, acne-like rosacea on the center of the face. I find that those people and people with perioral dermatitis do really well with sulfur.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen a lot of videos of people saying that like sulfur will shrink your pores or it gets rid of sebaceous filaments. There's zero evidence that it will help with that. Zero. And so, I do think sulfur is like a really, really good ingredient. It's underrated. I think some people will try it and it will make a big difference for their skin. I think a lot of people will try it and it will make no difference for their skin. And I do prescribe it all the time. It's just not like number one for me in prescribing.
Yeah, I agree. It's just,
We need to be
but I
clear
do
that
love
there
it.
is no tobacco in that.
This is true. I am not endorsing, nor have I ever endorsed the use of tobacco. In fact, I think it's deleterious to your health. However, I like the smell, and this is like my grandpa's old pipe. So, you know what I was, and I asked you what kid you were back in the day. I was the distracting kid, and not deliberately so, but unless I burn off my energy, I just can't sit still. So I like have to move. I like want to distract myself to stay engaged. We'll have a rolling disclaimer here. This is not functional.
Um, I, I don't know that I was the distracting kid. But I went to the gym today.
Oh, good.
Um,
Good for you.
and you didn't. So I kind of feel like our roles have switched. So
It's
I
true.
went 8 o'clock today on a Saturday, which is like, I like to sleep in on a Saturday. But
crazy.
I have a personal trainer, and you guys are going to keep hearing about this personal trainer situation because it's the focus of my life now. I think it's made a huge difference in just motivating me to go. I don't know that I think I did lose like 6 pounds, like I said, at one point, but I feel better. I just overall feel healthier, and I think it was worth the investment. I was really like, the cost was a factor.
It is a pipe.
The concern of it not making a difference was a factor, and I kind of pushed it off for a long time, but I think it's made a big difference in my life. So I'm pretty happy so far. I don't know if I'll continue it forever, but overall, I've been pretty happy with the results.
I think that's extremely impressive. I think I'm super happy you're like doing that consistently. I mean, early in the morning for you, I've seen you get out of the house, go to the gym at 7:15. That's wild. Should you wet your face before using niacinamide? Well, let me tell you from a wizened perspective. Niacinamide is an ingredient that's an extremely well-rounded ingredient. The best supporting ingredient, some might say. I think although peptides are perhaps competing for that role now. Do you need to wet your face before you use it? Not necessarily, because if you're using a serum product, it actually has a high concentration of water inherently. However, I do feel like the application goes on a little bit more smoothly. I think it goes on further if you kind of have a damp face, but you certainly can apply it to dry skin. And that's kind of, I think, true for all serums in general.
Okay, good advice. Pura Vida, we have a quote. We have a post pinned from Pura Vida about hyaluronic acid filler, and I just love when I was scrolling through the chat is Pura Vida commenting. Please answer Pura Vida's question. So like refer to themselves in the third person, which I love doing myself. So I think that's amazing. So Pura Vida, let's answer your question. Hyaluronic acid is naturally composed in the body, correct? However, many dermatologists have discovered that similar fillers do not diminish, however, simply migrate. Please answer. So, hyaluronic acid fillers, if our body naturally has hyaluronic acid and our body naturally has the mechanism by which we can break down hyaluronic acid, how come hyaluronic acid fillers seem to last longer than we initially anticipated? So I'm going to give a little backstory here so people, so everyone can kind of be at the same plane here. Hyaluronic acid is a substance that is naturally found in the dermis layer of our skin. It gives our skin volume. It gives our skin some resilience, and it's the majority of the ground substance that we find in our dermis layer of the skin. This is also the layer where our collagen is. Now, in dermatology and in plastic surgery and otherwise, we inject hyaluronic acid fillers into the face, usually underneath the dermis, actually, to try to lift and fill lost volume. And so Pura Vida is asking, like, if we naturally produce hyaluronic acid, how come it doesn't go away if we use a filler? And the reason why is because these hyaluronic acid fillers are cross-linked. These hyaluronic acid fillers that are artificially made by the filler companies are cross-linked in such a way that our body's natural hyaluronidase is not able to break it down as effectively as it would a natural substance produced by our body. And we used to always tell people hyaluronic acid fillers will only last 12 months, maximum 18 months, right? The truth is that he's not a dermatologist, he's a radiologist in Australia named Mobeen Master. He MRI'd people's faces and found that hyaluronic acid fillers could stick around like up to like 7, 8, 9, 10 years after the initial injection. So why is that happening? Well, it's because our body is not able to break it down as effectively as we once thought, which is why they tend to migrate with time, right? Because if they don't have anything to hold on to, they kind of spread out with time. And then a lot of celebrities and a lot of people who have gotten a lot of fillers, and you're hearing this a lot on the news lately, is that they're getting them dissolved with injections because they have moved past their original area. So we definitely see that now. We're more aware of that now. And this is kind of why fillers in general are kind of falling a little bit out of favor compared to where they used to be.
Yeah. I think that was a beautiful answer. I have absolutely nothing to add. That was extremely good. Korean skincare like snail mucin, snail emoji, overhyped or real, investigation emoji. Well, we actually did do a deep dive on snail mucin. And this is one of those ingredients, I think, Dr. Shah's original videos and even my videos a long time back, like this idea, I guess I should say, seemed so over the top and gimmicky, especially with some of the videos that were circulating. And honestly, the concept is kind of wild for those who are just, I think, Western in general. But it's well studied. Like anytime you have an ingredient that is backed up with a lot of data and information, and then pathophysiology into how it clinically translates into benefits, I'm probably going to be behind it, even no matter what my initial take was. And so snail mucin hit that mark for me. Aesthetically, it's actually fairly tolerable. And if you like a gel moisturizer, you'll probably like a lot of snail mucin products. So I think for sensitive skin, for dry skin, and then perhaps some anti-aging benefits, snail mucin has a lot of legitimacy. That's why it's had staying power. And that's why I am actually a fan of snail mucin overall.
Okay. I think that is a fair assessment of snail mucin. I agree with you. I think probably the biggest complaint is the snails in general for people. It's not vegan. And, I don't know that you can consider it cruelty free. So I think probably that's people's biggest issue with snail mucin. But overall, I actually think it performs really well. I agree with you. I do think that it is a product that kind of overperformed my expectations. Natasha said that's not a pipe. Is that?
I know, I saw that. I mean, and then I more in real time, I think I don't know what kind of pipe this would not be, but this is quite legitimately an old man pipe from 70 years ago.
I don't know if it has a specific name.
Does it? Oh, I don't know. I am certainly no expert, as you know, and especially if you are a health insurance provider examining me, I am and have never used tobacco.
You seem to be really worried about this because you
I
said
just went
this on
through
the last.
I just went through my medical screening for like disability insurance and life insurance. So like, you know what's crazy? So this is kind of crazy. I applied for health insurance, or not health insurance, disability insurance or life insurance, whatever, both. And I get a letter from them, and it says, "Hey, here are all the prescriptions you've filled in like the last 5 years. What were these for?" And I was like, "Wow, that's kind of crazy."
Really?
Yeah, and that's one of my concerns with electronic medical records in general. People are like, "Oh, it's so much more convenient." The government's like, "Yeah, it helps communication across the specialties and providers." Well, yeah, but sometimes doctors put in working diagnoses to get things covered for the patients. So, like, if we're working up a patient for psoriasis, or if we're looking at something for a biopsy, you kind of have to put various diagnoses in as you're treating empirically, as you're working up diagnosis. But then what happens 5 years down the road? They're like, "Hey, I saw you had psoriasis for a week 5 years ago." And that puts you at an increased risk for, heart attacks, metabolic syndrome. So now your insurance is 10 times more expensive. And then you have to like fight and be like, "Oh, it wasn't actually psoriasis." Or let's say you go through a season of life where you're depressed, and then all of a sudden you have a mental illness in your chart. And then they're like, "Well, you usually lose some rights. You don't get to do X, Y, Z, or you're at risk for X, Y, Z," even though it's like a normal life thing. So, I mean, I was kind of blown away when they sent me that, "Hey, this is the inhaler you had 5 years ago. Why?" And I was like, I don't know.
Wow.
I had a cold. I had a cough. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's a real concern for sure, It's kind of crazy. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, they're tracking kind of everything we're doing and I had friends when I was growing up. I remember when Easy Pass first rolled out. I don't know if anyone's from the Northeast. But Easy Pass is and I think it's actually all the way I think it's kind of like countrywide now, or I think it's in many states now, but I grew up in New York, so we had Easy Pass. And Easy Pass was like you could go through the tolls and the tolls would scan the pass, right? It's kind of like it seems everybody knows what I'm talking about now because it's like universally available in every state. But you scan it, it goes to the toll, right? And then it charges you. But I had these friends growing up, Italian kids, and they refused to use. You met them, I think. No, maybe you didn't. But they refused to use Easy Pass because they would only use cash because they were like, I don't want the government tracking my location. I think now they've surrendered to that, but I remember at the time, this is like 15 years ago, they would never ever get Easy Pass. So it is interesting. I think eventually we just give up. Natasha was asking, so did Dr. Shaw end up preparing your room last week, or did he overstay the Insta Live and you had to sleep on the floor, college style again? I was on live, I think, on TikTok, and I was talking about how I had to go prepare your room.
Huh? What do you mean?
Because you stayed at our place to shoot YouTube.
Yeah.
And your room wasn't prepared, so I had to like clean your room so that you could stay in it. But yes, I did. His room was pristine by the time he got
pristine,
here.
Yeah, except for the unusable dresser and mounds of
clothes. Yeah, minus that.
But it was pristine. I love staying there actually. So maybe we didn't answer Sam's question. It says, I don't know. I thought we did, but sorry if we did not. What did you think of the Cure at-home microneedling? I have hormonal acne. Use tretinoin 3 times a week with moisturizer. Very acne-prone. Products only sit on my skin and not absorbed. So I'm trying to approach this probably from the back forward, meaning that products sit on the skin and not absorbed. Therefore, I want to make ingredients more effective by needling. The product reference, therefore, then is the Cure microneedle infusion system. I'm going to say it more deliberately. The reason is because a barrier for ingredient effectiveness can be our skin barrier. So they don't absorb, they're not as effective. So yes, needling anything into the skin can make it more effective. Is it always safe? Not necessarily. I hate derma rolling. It's aggressive. It tears the skin. It's used haphazardly. And therefore, because of that, I actually really like the idea of stamping. And you can inject ingredients slightly deeper into the skin with a sterile needle head, which is the Cure one. So that's why you'll see me like on an ad or just talk about it in general. I genuinely like the concept, especially for people who are going to needle at home no matter what. Now, for the specific concern of acne, tretinoin is actually relatively well absorbed. I think it's actually highly functional when used topically. And so a Cure microneedling system or any microneedling in general or derma roll or anything like that is probably not the solution for acne prone skin. It's much better reserved for aging skin concerns. So while I like the device and while I acknowledge the limitations of topical skincare, that is probably not the ideal solution specifically for that problem. For aging skin, I do love it. Again, for acne skin, I think you're going to have to go more with dedicated acne ingredients, whether topically or orally, to get the results that you may need.
Totally agree. My biggest concern with microneedling, microstamping, microinfusion at home is that people will cause more damage than benefit. But if you are going to do this at home, the best way to do it would be the Cure microinfusion device, just because it really is something that is using sterile needles, single use. They come wrapped, and so they really try to optimize for the cleanliness piece of it. But yeah, I do think it's something that if you used it consistently, you would actually see a lot of results with, because it really is not only going to stimulate those wound healing mechanisms that contribute to its anti-aging benefits, but also help products penetrate better into the skin. But if done correctly, great product. If done incorrectly, the worst product. So yeah, that's my opinion there.
I see a good question with a very specific answer. Dr. Holmes, do you like castor oil on the face? Absolutely not. Castor
Mm.
oil, I have a strong opinion on only because the benefits that are associated with castor oil are wild, completely inaccurate, and 100% not evidence based. If people were like castor oil is an okay oil, I would accept that and move on. But people make a lot of strong claims with castor oil for very highly charged topics like hair loss. It doesn't do anything for that. Like physiologically, there's no evidence that it works. It has been shown to be somewhat allergenic or irritating. As far as oils go, it's towards the bottom in terms of skin benefits. So even for the face or a generally healthy skin oil, I do not like castor oil. The end.
Okay. There you go. Simple answer. Dr. Shah, is it okay to use Remedy with Biossance Gel Moisturizer? Perfect to do together. So you can use either our Remedy for pore size or Remedy for dark spots. Either one, you could follow it with the Biossance Gel Moisturizer. It's actually what I do. So that's how I know it's okay. But yeah, cleanse, apply Remedy for dark spots or Remedy for pore size, moisturize afterwards. That's where you're going to see all the benefits. Okay, let's see. How much of a difference will I see with the jowls and new face? Ooh, okay. Let's kind of attack that question. All right, so new face and jowls. Good question. So a new face uses microcurrent. And now there's not been a lot of studies on microcurrent, and I have a whole YouTube video on microcurrent devices that's still up there. If you type in microcurrent or if you type in new face on YouTube, it's going to be one of the first results. And I go into all the science of microcurrent and why I don't recommend it. One, it just doesn't have enough data. The second problem that I have with it is that let's say, for example, we take what the brands say at face value, which is that it can help stimulate muscle contraction, tighten and tone and lift the muscles. And by lifting the muscles, it, kind of replaces volume and gives you like a more plumped, hydrated look, right? If we take that at face value, then if you use it on the upper face, forehead, around the eyes, then you would essentially be counteracting the effects of Botox, which, we know that Botox can soften fine lines and wrinkles. So would you want to strengthen the muscles in your face? Because if you strengthen the muscles in the face, wouldn't that then actually make your wrinkles worse, right? So that was one of the other reasons, one of my other arguments in this like thesis I put forward 3 years ago. And I still pretty stand firmly behind that thesis. Now, when you ask specifically about jowls, I thought about this recently because jowls a lot of times occur for many reasons, but one of the reasons is losing volume in the lower part of the face, which causes, as you lose volume, like if you think about, I'll show you a really good example, like on video, so you can see me. Here, I'll try to keep this on my face, but if you look closely here, if you lose volume in this central cheek, right? Then you actually start to develop these like nasolabial folds, right? Do you see how like if you lose volume in the cheek, you start to develop these nasolabial folds, which is why if you put filler in the central cheek, it lifts up those nasolabial folds because lost volume here causes this area to sag. Well, it's the same thing with jowls. If you lose volume in your chin or in your jaw, you will actually start to develop worsening jowls, right? Which is why if you put volume with filler in your chin or in your lower face, it can lift your jowls and make them a little bit less obvious. Now, that being said, if New Face truly works by stimulating muscle, which we don't know that that's true, but if it is true, then stimulating these muscles in your jaw could potentially create a more lifted appearance, and that could be a good use for a device like New Face. Now, if you're somebody who gets Macid or Botox, it would counteract the effects of Macid or Botox, so don't do that. But if you're somebody who does have a little bit of a weaker jawline, I would say, then you could benefit potentially. That could be a special use case scenario for New Face. That and Bell's palsy.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a very nuanced topic, but a very good answer to that. What was the one I saw?
I think there were some super chats we have to address.
Yeah.
Jay asks, how effective is CO2 laser treatment? One of the most effective things. CO2, 1060, 1080, 10,800, 10,600 nanometer, targets water, incredibly effective laser to tighten and resurface the skin. Now, as somebody who operates these lasers, you can do many things with these lasers. You can decrease its power and energy. You can the little holes that they create, you can make them closer together or further apart. The closer they are together, the more it's going to take off more skin, and the further apart they are, the less skin it takes off, and less downtime. You can do incredible things with the CO2 laser treatment, specifically for tightening, loose skin, wrinkles, resurfacing, anti-aging. A single treatment with CO2 will probably set you back about 4 years, 4 or 5 years in aging. With the appropriate settings in the hands of somebody who's skilled and trained, a single CO2 laser treatment is going to do probably more for you than any other topical treatment or any other type of laser treatment out there. The risk with CO2 laser is that it can be expensive. And the second risk with it is that it's not safe in all skin tones, especially at the higher settings. So, if you have a darker skin tone like Fitzpatrick 3 or greater, use CO2 with very, 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 very much caution.
Yeah, that's it exactly. CO2 though is black and white results. It's one of those things that you can promise a lot and expect a lot, which is why a lot of doctors are a huge fan of it, especially in relationship to even topical skincare. So from another question, another one that's gone back quite far. So thanks for hanging with us. Silly question. Can you use a red light therapy mask on your scalp so you don't have to purchase a separate cap for your head? So there was that individual on, what was it, Instagram? Who was it that sent the video of them using a mask on their scalp? Put it up on their stories? Who was it? Someone prominent.
Oh, it was the founder of Hero Cosmetics.
Yeah, that's who it was.
Yeah.
So conceptually, you'd like to think so, but there's actually quite a bit of, like, a lot of difference between the scalp treatments with LED, because they also typically will combine laser versus the facial LED masks. I think there's actually a tremendous difference in power, in addition to some other nuanced things that unfortunately does not make the face mask capable of doing double duty for hair loss. Do you disagree, or do you think?
I agree with you. Yeah, I saw a lot of people doing it. And I didn't want to debunk it because I saw like a lot of, derms.
Oh yeah. See, I didn't see that. So this was from a genuine place.
Which like, I no, and we will debunk it. It's just I didn't want to do it like so reactionary. I wanted to do a little bit more education around it. Like, just because like I'm not, I think professionally with colleagues, there's many different approaches, right? Like, misinformation is misinformation, right? And like when we create content, like we should do our best to try to counteract misinformation. Now with professionals, I generally like to just like DM somebody, and because I think the risk is like, let's say that somebody puts out 99.9% accurate content, right? And then 0.1% of the time they make a mistake, right? And then you call them out on their credibility because they made that one mistake. Then everything they said before that gets called into question by their followers and their peers. And like the net good of that person is much better than that one video, right? So that's why I like to like DM people who make content like this, and I say, hey, like, you may want to reconsider this post, or oh, here's some other data you might want to read on what you posted about. I think personally, I think that's the way that I like to approach things. I think everybody else has their own way of approaching things and correcting misinformation. So a lot of times I just send them a DM like, hey, you may want to read this. That being said, I totally agree with you. I think that is kind of like simplifying, like a light is a light, or an LED, or a red light is a red light. And it really isn't, like when it comes to red light for the face and LED for the face, is much different than the low level light therapy that's been proven for the scalp. And so you would see probably a little bit of benefit from using red light on the scalp, because it is going to boost collagen. It's going to stimulate those fibroblasts. But the hair growth benefits don't do double duty. So the low level light therapy masks that are made for the scalp are actually using different technology than the ones on the face. So you could do it, but it's not going to see the same benefits. So I agree with you.
Yeah, it's kind of. It could be helpful, but certainly not to the extent of a cap, I guess I would say. So it's like not a bad hack because it's not harmful, but it could help, but it's not going to help as dramatically. I'm gonna have to hop off here soon. Got to make the kids some lunch.
Ooh, okay. I didn't know you were out here making lunch. Nice. Let's try to answer as much questions. I'm just gonna maybe we could do some rapid fire.
Yeah.
I feel bad like the problem is like when anyone super chatted us, I feel like I feel bad if we don't respond to those, but then I also don't want to like encourage people to do that. So like now I'm finding myself in this conundrum where I'm like, I got to answer all the super chats really quick. So I'm going to do that. If I use salicylic acid, benzoyl peroxide in the morning, different gel PM, how can I address hyperpigmentation if vitamin C doesn't work with these products? Vitamin C is not great for hyperpigmentation. It's kind of like a mid ingredient for hyperpigmentation. It has other benefits, like I think it's antioxidant benefits and even collagen building benefits. They're much more profound than its pigment benefits. So what I would say is you don't need vitamin C, and you can just use, another treatment that's going to be a little bit better for dark spots. In exchange, I would probably change out your salicylic acid for something that's maybe a little bit more targeted towards pigmentation. How can petechiae be treated? This is going to require a much more complicated and nuanced discussion, but petechiae are little kind of like bruise-like spots that appear on the skin. And if you're developing petechiae, you really need to find what's causing that. If you have low platelets or some other condition that's causing petechiae, this needs to be diagnosed with blood work and then treated as such. Once petechiae form on the skin, you could use lasers to remove the petechiae, but you really need to find the root cause of your petechiae because it's usually related to something that's going on in the blood. Salicylic acid and CeraVe, retinol, niacinamide help flatten sebaceous hyperplasia. Those are going to be the best ingredients: salicylic acid, retinol, and niacinamide for sebaceous hyperplasia. Those are going to be the best possible things you can do over the counter, which is why quick shameless plug, Remedy for Pore Size has all three of these ingredients in one formula at remedyskin.com. But separately, those are going to be the three best ingredients you can have for sebaceous hyperplasia. But truly sebaceous hyperplasias and enlarged oil gland, they need to be treated probably in the office. Lasers do really well for this, and so do electric needle, electrocautery, electrofulguration, desiccation does really well at eliminating sebaceous hyperplasia. Okay, Dr. Shah from India, 20 years. I have started using skincare products, so my procedure is cleanser, toner, niacinamide, retinol, lotion, sunscreen. Is it good? Phenomenal. That's an incredible routine. That's exactly where you need to be. You could probably cut out your toner, but overall, I think you're doing great. What laser treatments are best for type 2 rosacea? IPL, PDL, KTP do really well for rosacea. That's all the chats.
Nice. Strong work.
I know you have to go. Do you want to hop and then I'll just finish this out?
Yeah, that works. So thanks y'all for hanging out. I have to go do real life. And we'll see you next time, maybe as early as next week or the week after. I think Saturday mornings are going to be a reoccurring theme.
All right. Say bye to Reba, everyone. Thanks for hanging out this morning, Dr. Maxfield. This was Dr. Maxfield's idea to go live today, and now I feel like I'm the one that's going to continue to live. All right. Dr. Dre uses a red light helmet that Autumn. Yeah, so Dr. Dre and Cassandra Bankston have videos on red light helmets. You can check those out. Definitely avoid baking soda on the face. Cheryl Brown, I agree with you. Is retinol you put in your skincare line a heavy duty one or a lightweight one? I use adapalene and tretinoin that cause a nasty rash and it itched. So quick on Remedy for Pore Size has very strong retinol in it, and Remedy for dark spots has a much lighter dose. So if you're someone who's sensitive to retinol, this is going to be a better option for you, the dark spot treatment, because it just has about a third the concentration of retinol that this one does. This one, if you're new to retinol, please ease into this one because it is super strong. That's why it's effective, but it's also super strong. Lisa's asking, Dr. Shah, can I use Ola Henriksen vitamin C after Remedy? I think Ola Henriksen vitamin C is a derivative of vitamin C, which means you probably can. But let me just double check. Ooh, $68 vitamin C. This hurts my soul. Let's see. Oh, it uses the pure vitamin C form, so I wouldn't. No, sorry, it uses ethyl ascorbic acid. So yes, you could use it at the same time, or you could use Remedy at night, and you could use that product in the morning. I lost the chat. Let me find it again. What does fasting do to the skin? So fasting has profound anti-inflammatory benefits. In fact, like there are cytokines, which are signaling molecules that trigger inflammation in the body, and those levels of cytokines decrease in the body when you're fasting. And so, if you have any inflammatory type of skin condition, whether it's psoriasis, hidradenitis suppurativa, or even acne, um, fasting does have that benefit. Bariqua Girl said, "Don't waste your money on red light wands." I completely agree. Masks are much more efficient. We actually did a video on this. It's coming out probably in the next few weeks called Skincare You Don't Need. And we talk about red light wands versus masks. Red light wands are preferable. Red light masks are preferable because they treat a larger area at the same time instead of using a wand that would take you all day to treat. All right. I know I'm trying to be fast answering these questions. Can everyone hear you? Can everyone hear Pat or no? So Pat is talking to my ear. He said there's a lot of questions coming in. Pat's our editor, producer. Will mandelic acid 10% plus hyaluronic acid or alpha arbutin 2% from the ordinary help with hyperpigmentation? I would prefer the alpha arbutin over the mandelic acid for pigmentation, but you could also use mandelic acid 2 nights a week and alpha arbutin 5 nights a week, and then that would be beneficial. Any recommendations for toners? Or not a must needed. Yeah. So definitely toners. So this is the deal with toners really quickly, and I'll do like my little thing on toners. So toners initially existed only because we used to really use really harsh soaps with very high pHs on the skin, and they would leave almost like a lye residue on the skin. And toners were actually meant to remove some of that harsh cleansing residue that was on our skin. And that's why toners became so popular, was because soaps used to suck, essentially. Now that soaps are much better and cleansers are much better than ever before, the need for a traditional toner is negated. You don't really need a traditional toner anymore. So brands said, well, everyone knows that they need a toner. They know that their mom told them they need a toner. Their grandmother told them that they need a toner. So now let's continue to make toners, but instead of making them toners that balance pH and remove lye, they just created a new category of skincare products that are just essentially actives. Like they have some glycolic acid or they have some niacinamide in them, and they're calling them toners, but really they're just serums or treatments. And so you don't need a toner at all, really, anymore. You just need the actives that are going to help you accomplish your skincare goals. So be very thoughtful about the products that you're choosing and make sure that each product is actually doing something beneficial for your skin. Can I use minoxidil 3% on beard for beard growth? So there's actually a study on minoxidil specifically at the 3% concentration for beard growth. They put minoxidil in a lotion at 3%, and it showed benefit in beard growth. So Hardik, Chowdhury, you can definitely use minoxidil on the beard. Camera, good to see you. Usually I'm live only on TikTok, but today I'm live here on Instagram. I mean, on YouTube. And Dr. Maxfield was here earlier, but he's now abandoned me. So I'm going to finish this out and try to answer as many questions as rapidly as I can before I also log off here in a bit. Brooke asked, I'm currently using tretinoin. Which remedy should I use? Would I alternate it with my tretinoin? So this has become a very, very common question, is like, how do you use remedy for dark spots or remedy for pore size when you're using tretinoin? And fair question. So there's really two ways to do it. I think that if you like, let's talk about dark spots specifically. Let's say, for example, you have your main complaint is dark spots. Then I would say rotate these. Tretinoin on night 1, remedy for dark spots on night 2, tretinoin on night 3, and then kind of rotate them back and forth. If you told me that your main complaint was acne, I think that tretinoin is better for acne than remedy for dark spots is, but you still have dark spots. I would do tretinoin 5 nights a week and remedy for dark spots 2 nights a week. But for most people, I would just rotate them 1 night on, 1 night off. Unless you're more acne based, then I would do more tretinoin and less remedy for dark spots. So that's how I would use them. Let's see what else. So could one not then associate restricted diet to good skin health? So no, I don't, Kimberly, I'm not specifically, someone's asking about like, is a restricted diet good for skin health? I think that most diets in general, you know, tend to be not great for the skin ultimately. Miriam said that I'm the Beyonce of the group, which I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing. I guess like I could be like I guess is Dr. Maxfield then like um, the Kelly Rowland of the group? What's the who are the other people in the trio? Um, so now I lost my question from before. What was the question that I was answering before that? Oh, restricted diets. So restricted diets generally tend to be more harmful than beneficial. The reason I was talking about fasting specifically is because it's Ramadan right now, and so religiously, many people are fasting. And so if you are going to be completing your religious obligation of fasting during the month of Ramadan, there is benefits to the skin of fasting during Ramadan. Was my point. So I'm not really making any like diet recommendations to people because I feel like people, can get with diets. I think people can kind of go the wrong direction. But if you are fasting for Ramadan, there is benefits on the skin. Ryan said, I love the Cure at home microneedling. Like I said, great device. Just make sure you're using it properly because you'll see a lot of benefits with the Cure microneedling device. It's just that if you use it incorrectly, it could, cause damage to the skin. Danny asked, Pat, please put my question forward. Pat, she got to you. She or he got to you. Pat, please put my question forward. I get cold sores whenever I use vitamin C, so I stopped. Please, can you recommend a daily alternative as I miss the glow that it gives? Wow. That's a good question. So I'm not sure why, vitamin C can be very irritating for people, and that irritation could potentially trigger a cold sore outbreak. What could you use that would give you a similar glow? There are some lipid soluble forms of vitamin C that you might like a little bit better. I can't think of any of the brand names. Right, we're putting out a whole video on vitamin C, so stay tuned for that. It's probably going to come out within the next 2 months, I would say, a month, 2 months. So we'll do a whole deep dive on vitamin C, every derivative of vitamin C, which ones we recommend, and even some product recommendations there. So if you're a little bit sensitive to vitamin C, then I think niacinamide is a really good alternative to vitamin C. So niacinamide will give you sort of that same glow, but it's just not going to be as irritating for people. Is red light tools okay for people with rosacea? It is. Please, can you answer this question? How do you get rid of a farmer's tan? Not hyperpigmentation. It's a good question. I think in general, wearing sunscreen on any exposed area of the body will help get rid of a farmer's tan. It will take a little bit of time for that to happen, so you certainly have to be patient with it. But that would probably be the best way to get rid of a farmer's tan. There's also some evidence that glutathione supplements can be helpful as well with farmer's tans. So the main thing I would say is, protective clothing, sunscreen, and plus or minus glutathione. I don't really like to recommend supplements, so take that at your own risk, essentially. Yeah. So Caroline is asking, how does remedy for dark spots compare to Skin Better Alpha Ret overnight cream, specifically for spots and hyperpigmentation? So Skin Better Alpha Ret is a phenomenal product for anti-aging. It's got retinol, lactic acid, and glycolic acid in it. So it's doing a lot of the things that we want to see with an anti-aging product. For dark spots and discoloration, remedy for dark spots is a far better. That's, I mean, of course, like but like, even if you just look at the ingredient list, we're really focused on dark spots with our remedy for dark spots formula. So this is a far superior formula for that, because not only does it have the retinol that Alpha Ret has, but it also has the kojic acid, the glutathione, the licorice root, the tranexamic acid, the niacinamide, the silymarin, the acetylglucosamine, and all the ingredients that are going to help with dark spots. So for dark spots, it's the far superior product. For anti-aging, specifically wrinkles and fine lines, Alpha Ret is the superior product. Now, they both are going to have some overlap, right? So I look at these products, they're almost like a Venn diagram. And in the center of that Venn diagram, they both do a little bit of anti-aging and they both do pigment. But Alpha Ret's better for anti-aging and wrinkles, and remedy for dark spots is better for dark spots and discoloration. So that's kind of how I look at it. Belle is helping answer some questions in the chat. We appreciate you. You should join our Facebook group, and I'll also help to answer some questions there. That would be helpful. Do I have to wear sunscreen in the house? Thanks. Yeah, so wearing sunscreen every day, the habit of it, just kind of like brushing your teeth, is good to have, right? So it's good to do. So even if you're not going to leave the house, like wearing a sunscreen at least once in the morning is going to have benefit in just building your routine out. And if you have big, large windows in your home, it's super beneficial to wear sunscreen from just the UVA light that penetrates most window glass. So for anti-aging, I actually do think anti-aging and pigmentation, I actually do think wearing sunscreen in the house makes a difference if you have big windows. If you're in like, an industry, if you're in prison, you don't need to wear sunscreen inside. So for all of those who are listening from prison, you don't need to wear sunscreen. I knew I was going to start a trend. Sorry. But are people saying, "Hey, Pat"? Are people calling you out now in the chat? Hidradenitis suppurativa flare-ups. Some of my favorite patients ever have been patients with hidradenitis suppurativa. These are painful bumps in the armpits and groin. They're incredibly uncomfortable and, I think very, very challenging to treat. The best over-the-counter options are going to be using a benzoyl peroxide cleanser or a Hibiclens cleanser in those areas. For flares, sitz backs can be helpful if they're in the groin, but otherwise, going to see your dermatologist for oral medications like doxycycline, oral medications like clindamycin, like rifampin, injection medications like Humira. Those can be really, really beneficial. I've even done injections on patients who have flares. I've had patients come in with like a really bad flare from hidradenitis suppurativa. They can't even sit down. They can't even walk. And I'll inject some of those patients with a steroid to help with the inflammation. But yeah, that's tough. I'm sorry that you're going through that. Moisturizer to use with retinoid. Anyone is good. Skin Fix, the brand Skin Fix, which I don't have it in front of me right now. Otherwise I would show you, but Skin Fix, they have done some studies on their moisturizers being used with tretinoin and helping to decrease some of that irritation. So I really like Skin Fix moisturizers for retinoids. They're a little bit on the pricier side though. It's 1:00. Okay. All right, we're going to wrap up for the day. We're going to try to do this either weekly or bi-weekly. But thank you all so much. Wait, someone said, Dr. Shaw, please change your smoke alarm batteries. Kay, I think you might need to change your smoke alarm batteries. Because I don't think mine's. I'm gonna listen now, but I don't think mine's going off. but that could be a good sign. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you all so much for your support of Remedy. Definitely check out remedyskin.com and definitely browse the products. We have a dark spot treatment, a pore size treatment, and a dry lip treatment. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you probably next week or the week after. We have a ton of new YouTube videos that we shot last week. They're really, really good topics that we cover. So looking forward to release those videos over the next month. And thank you all so much for your support. I'm sorry if I didn't get to answer your question. We'll try next time to get to as many people as we can. Thank you guys.